You're listening to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.
And welcome to Win-Win Entrepreneurial Community. Welcome back to another edition, available now on both YouTube and traditional podcast formats, wherever you listen to those. And I am Ben Wolf, the host. And our guest today is going to be sharing how to get your organization to save tens of thousands of dollars in employee health insurance costs, including with less out of pocket for the employees themselves with a high deductible plan. So it's a kind of a very specialized technique or tool that we're going to be sharing today that could potentially save you a lot of money. So that's what we're going to talk about. And remind everybody to subscribe, leave a review wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, follow, like, whatever it is. And definitely make that content that we are sharing here and the information and knowledge that our guests are sharing more accessible to yourself and others in the future as time goes on. And with that, I want to get on to introducing our guest today, who is the CEO of HKM Associates, which is an employee health and retirement benefits firm. He is also the founder, interestingly, of a United States-wide, maybe I don't know if it's international, for Canada, he'll have to tell us. Roundtable networking group is the name of it, and I've attended meetings of theirs. They're very interesting. Met some very interesting people. Had follow-up meetings afterwards with some of them. It was good stuff. So we'll learn about that, in case that would be something that people want to potentially take advantage of. You can find out more about him and what he does at hkmassociates.com. That's hkmassociates.com. And with that, I give you Jeff Weiner. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Ben.
No problem. Well, happy to have you on. And just so people know that Jeff and I are both members of a very nice networking group called Business Impact Group, BIG, led by Jim Fermi. So we know each other through that, and he's a great guy. He's made some great introductions for me to connect me with great people, and he's just somebody who shares information and knowledge freely, and is a great person to go to if you need help with, obviously, employee benefits for your company. And hopefully we can get him to talk about that at some point. But first, for the teaching element, as a preface to that, as I ask the other guests always here, is if you could give us a quick 2-minute background, like a 2-minute history on where you came from, how you got to be where you are today, talking about the kind of stuff that you're talking about that we might not find on your LinkedIn, resume.
Sure. I mean, I've been running my business now for 39 years. March was the beginning of my 39th year in business.
Wow.
And I've always had the passion to help people, help companies, help connect people. And that's kind of where the Roundtable Networking Group concept kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always done stuff to help businesses grow and also try to educate them and save them money. Our kind of big point is that we spend a lot of our time on education and showing people what they don't know. In fact, my tagline is we do MRIs and CAT scans, but on insurance policies, because we show people what they don't know, because health insurance is obviously a very complicated, ever-changing industry, and we really try to kind of simplify it for our clients.
How'd you get into this? I know it was 39 years, which is cool.
Yeah, kind of dumb luck, actually. Up until first semester senior year of college, I was going to be an attorney. Decided I didn't want to go to law school.
Well, as an attorney, I could tell you, who's not practicing, I could tell you it's a good move.
Okay. And I was at SUNY Albany, which is where I graduated from. And Adelphi happened to be up there, and they said, if you'd like to see what it would be like to be an attorney without going to law school, check out our program. And it was a paralegal program. And so I went to the program instead of going to law school. And coincidentally, the topic that I chose to specialize in was employee benefits and pensions.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a certified paralegal in employee benefits and pensions. Looked around for paralegal jobs, didn't really click with that. And then basically sat down with the Times, and it was, financial services, sales help wanted, no experience necessary, will pay to train. I was 21, living at home, putting gas into my 73 Mustang. And, and I said, all right, let me go check it out. And interviewed with the company called Phoenix Mutual.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, and I walked in and I was like, do I want to sell life and health insurance? And, but, we started talking about not being an entrepreneur, and I was always very entrepreneurial. And they said, you can be your own business, call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. And, we'll help you kind of build a business. And, and I said, okay, I'll try this until something better comes along. And 39 years later, doing the same thing.
There you are. Wow. Okay. Very cool. I mean, it's interesting. And so, I want to let people start, start gathering some of this knowledge built up over all those years. I mean, so first of all, I mean, I guess what I want to talk about, because I think it's going to be more novel for people, is this high deductible plan. But before we get into that and teaching about that, I want to, hopefully just give a little background. Like, why is group employee health insurance so expensive? Like, what is it? How does it work that makes it so expensive? And maybe that could be a preface to people understand why this can save money. But just a little background though. Like, how does it work? Why is it so expensive?
Sure. So when health insurance started, when I started in the business, I mean, health insurance was $30 a single and $250 a family.
Hmm.
And then,
Wow. Now it's 10 times that.
exactly. And I think with the advent of medicine, with people relying on their benefits to cover everything, people started getting into managed care. And I only want to pay a small amount of copays, and I really don't understand all of the ins and outs of the field. And so each year people were using their benefits way more, or way more than they thought they were going to use them, and they didn't want to pay a lot of money for them. So people started, insurance carriers like Chubb and like Guardian came out with plans that were very low copays and very low cost when you got sick. And people kind of said, wow, this is great. I can have benefits. It's not that expensive back then, and get fully covered. It's not going to cost me a lot of money for myself or for my family if, God forbid, we got sick. And I think that was kind of the advent of basic copay type of plans. And that's worked for, I would say, probably 35 years. High deductible plans came out about 7 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
But when they first came out, and it kind of got a reputation of, oh, that's good for young people because, if you have a lot of claims, there's a risk involved.
Mm-hmm.
And when they first came out, that was the situation. You could save $5,000 or $6,000 for a family, but you could have a $10,000 exposure on your claims. So everybody's like, well, yeah, I'll save money, but if I get sick, I'm going to end up paying more. And so it developed that kind of reputation with high deductible plans in the
Okay.
beginning of them. What's happened over the last few years is the difference in the premiums, because the premiums have continued to climb and climb and climb. But the difference in the premium between a traditional copay type of plan and a high deductible plan have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger each and every year, to the point where it's at now, there is really no risk in buying a high deductible plan anymore.
Hmm.
Because of what's happened with the rate increases over the last several years. Because the average rate increase on a traditional plan has been about 10 or 12%. The average rate increase on a high deductible plan has been about 5 or 6%.
So typically, what are those costing per single, per family, for each? Like, what's the relative difference in costs?
So all the plans now since 2010, when the new ACA came out, all plans are what's called platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. So they're all different levels, and the difference between, let's say, a platinum plan and a bronze plan is simply how much risk you're willing to take on, what kind of copays or deductibles you're going to pay, and what's your out-of-pocket cost going to be. Because all plans have what's called a maximum out of pocket, which is the most you could pay no matter what happens. With a platinum plan, it's a much lower risk, so therefore you're paying a much higher premium.
Right.
So most companies have have purchased something called like a gold level plan. Some companies have platinum plans, but most of the companies purchase a gold level plan. The average cost on a gold level plan with, let's say, a carrier like Oxford is
Hmm.
around $2,600 a month for family coverage.
Wow. And that's right. And I guess in different employers might choose, to cover different portions of that, but that's the total premium for each family,
Correct.
approximately.
Correct.
Okay.
And premiums, how much a company covers, it depends on the size of the company, the industry, and things like that. Um, Most of the groups that we work with are between 2 and 100 employees, so that's considered what's called small group.
Uh-huh.
So the company's contributions vary from like I said, from industry and from things like that. Well, by shifting to a bronze level plan, the premium drops to $1,600. So a company
And
can save.
that's even on a low deductible plan? Or-
No, on a high deductible plan, on a
Okay.
bronze level high deductible plan.
Okay.
Um, and so the company saves about $1,000 per month per family, and about $600 per month per family on single people, because proportionally the numbers are work the same way.
Right.
Uh, so companies save tremendous amounts of money, but again, because it's a higher deductible, and a typical bronze plan has around an $8,000 or $10,000 deductible. Um, but the way we recommend our clients do this, and why it works both for employers and employees,
Okay.
is we have the employees have a little skin in the game. So our clients, whether it's 2 people, 10 people, 20 people, the way we recommend it, the employees pay the first $500 of claims. So they they set it up on what's called a flexible spending account, which allows them to put in $500 on a pre-tax basis.
Hmm.
And if they never go to the doctor, they are allowed to, with the new law, roll over that $500. So there's no
Hmm.
risk involved for an employee to put in that first $500.
Okay.
The company, then we set up what's called an HRA, which is a health reimbursement arrangement. Many people have heard of HSAs, but an HRA is the same kind of idea, but the company holds on to the money and only funds the claims when and if there are claims.
Does the same claims administrator, are they using the same claims administrator to handle that money as they actually make the regular claims themselves?
Yeah,
So like
so
automatically comes out. And of this, so then there's let's say it's a $10,000 deductible. So then the difference between the 500 that the employee's putting in and the 10,000, is that all being put in by the employer? How does that usually work?
typically the number we're recommending is $7,000, because a company is saving $12,000 and funding seven, which means worst case scenario, the company will save $5,000 a family and
Right.
$2,500 a single. So there's a huge
Nothing to
save,
sneeze at.
and that's assuming every single employee gets sick all at the same time, because it's
Right.
a
And
per
use up
person.
their entire seven or whatever.
Yeah, and one or two people who have, God forbid, cancer, major illnesses, aren't gonna kill the company, because the company's still only funding that $7,000, and then the employee covers the rest of the deductible. But or the
And
rest
what
of the
happens to that money that's not used up by claims?
The company only funds it when and if it happens. So there is no
It's
extra
not
money.
pre-funded. It's
It's not
okay.
pre-funded. The company is funding it as it happens.
Uh-huh. Right. Okay. I mean, that's really cool. I mean, obviously people can, reach you at hkmassociates.com, or they could, whoever they normally go to for their employee benefits to find out about these things. I guess one thing that we've talked about before, separately from this podcast, is what what effect has like COVID and lockdown and all these varying ever changing stages of reopening, how has that played in or affected all of this? What effect has it had on everything with
It
employee health benefits?
Yeah, it's actually what happened was the insurance companies are covering all the coronavirus claims. So anything related to coronavirus, the insurance companies are covering 100% of those claims at this point. I don't know if they're
Hmm.
getting government backing or how they're doing it, but they are covering it. So when you look at a high deductible plan, you want to always look at what's called the maximum out of pocket, which is the
Hmm.
most you could ever pay. So if you have a gold plan, your maximum out of pocket as a family is $10,400. That's the most you could ever pay no matter what. Well, with
Hmm.
a bronze plan, the maximum out of pocket is $13,500. However, as crazy as it sounds, the sicker you get, the more you save as an employee. Because if the company is giving you $7,000, well, that means your maximum out of pocket is $6,500, which means it will cost you $4,000 less as an employee if you use up all your claims. So as an employee, I have surgery, I have major claims. Under the gold plan, you're going to pay that $10,500 because the company doesn't cover any of your copays and deductibles and co-insurance. Under the high deductible plan, they do. So it will cost you as an employee. So the company will save $5,000. The
Right.
employee will save $4,000. So it's kind of a win-win all the way around.
Right.
And even if they have small amounts of claim, I had somebody who had surgery. Okay. They were going to stay with the gold plan because they were having surgery. And this was about a month ago. And I said, no, it's going to be much better for you to go to the bronze plan because the company gave them the choice.
Right.
Well, how so? I said, well, if you have surgery, you have a gold plan, you have $1,000 hospital copay. You have to pay that. You have a $60 copay for physical therapy. If you're having surgery, you go for a couple of physical therapy visits, $60 a visit, another 4 or 5
Adds
visits.
up.
It adds up. So you're going to spend about $1,300 or $1,400 to have your surgery. Under our scenario, you're going to pay $500 pre-tax, and then you're done. Because what the $7,000 the company is willing to give you is more than enough to cover any hospital and surgery visits.
Hmm.
Because what counts with a high deductible plan is what's called the contracted rate. And that's the key. It's not what the hospital or doctor charges, it's what the insurance company allows. So a $25,000 surgery, the contracted rate is going to be about $3,000. So you're responsible for paying $3,000. Well, as an employee, you're going to only pay $500 of that $3,000 versus with a gold plan, you'd pay that $1,300, $1,400, $1,500, $1,600. So whether you have a small amount of claims or you max out as an employee, it's going to cost you less money. And we know as from an employer point of view, their worst case scenario saves them anywhere between $5,000 and $12,000 a family. That's because
Right.
their worst case saves them five, their best case saves them 12. And because of the coronavirus situation, very few claims are being paid because people aren't having surgeries and hospitalizations and doctor visits. And also with the advent of telemedicine, that's not really set up to be a code yet. So there's really no cost to that from an employer point of view. We recently moved a law firm a 20-person law firm where we saved him $7,500 a month in premium. Now
Wow.
that's his best case scenario. His worst case scenario was still saving him over $40,000. But we spoke to him the first month. For the month, the company only paid $1,000 worth of claims for all 20 people because people aren't going to doctors and
Right.
hospitals.
They're not going out.
Yeah, so our feeling is over the next year, the likelihood of companies hitting their best case scenario is much more likely than them hitting their worst case scenario, which still saves them a lot of money. But based on this guy, he saved $6,500 a month of the 75 under his best case scenario. And that's
Right.
what we're seeing happen as we talk to people and we get these things set up. We're seeing very little claims because of coronavirus.
Right. Well, it's really interesting, and I don't, it's a good tool that people should know about. And obviously, with cash being tight and business being down for many people, obviously anything they could be doing to save money is great. And the fact that it's not like on the back of their people who they value, but it actually benefits the people even more is really interesting. And I guess I just also find it interesting that this is all happening because, uh, or it's all been enabled because of the exploding, skyrocketing cost of health insurance. I mean, that's why I guess that's why this situation gets into existence. It's really interesting.
Yeah, because if you save $50 or $100 by moving from a traditional to a high deductible, you're not going to do it. But
Right.
because the numbers are so high to begin with, the savings are a tremendous amount of money. In most businesses, their three biggest expenses: payroll, rent, and benefits. Um, and you're allowed to switch plans off anniversary also, which is kind of what's driven this as well, is there are ways you can stay with your carrier and switch even if it's not your anniversary of data. So you don't, because people think, oh, I'm stuck till the anniversary of my policy.
Right.
You're not. You're not. You
Hmm.
can switch your health insurance anytime you want. The insurance companies have to hold the rates for a year, but your health insurance is actually month to month, and most people don't know that.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that's very interesting, and obviously people can reach out to you at hkmassociates.com, or whoever's doing their employee benefits to find out more about that. Go into bronze if that's what's considered a high deductible plan. So it's really interesting. But before we run out of time, I do want to get on to the second thing, which is this kind of like pivot in the conversation to the Roundtable networking group, which I attended one meeting of. It was very cool, but how did you get into organizing networking groups? Like, how did that happen?
So I've been networking pretty much my whole career. That's how I built my business, going to as
Uh,
many events as I could and things like that. And it got to the point where I said, you know what, a lot of these groups meet way too often. It's not the right people in the room. They're very expensive to join and that kind of stuff. And so I decided, it's about 7 years ago, um, that I wanted to kind of try my own thing. I always liked, facilitated small group networking, more than 150 people in a room throwing around business cards.
right.
Um, so I called, a few of my clients and some business contacts that I know are big in the networking world, and kind of ran my idea of the group by them, and said, and it was, 12 to 14 people, business owners and decision makers, exclusive by industry for the meeting, no fees, because that's not why I really wanted to do this, uh, kind of giving back to my passion of helping businesses grow. Um, so it's $35 for lunch. You get to talk 3-4 minutes about who you are, what you do, and how it works different than every other networking group. Each time you come, you meet different people. It's a
Mm,
rotating group. And in fact, people that run networking groups come to my group because the people that come to my group are the people they want to join their group, because we have partners at the accounting firms and the law firms and senior lending people at the banks and things like that. Um, and I figured if I could grow it to 75, 80, 90, 100 companies, after 3 or 4 years, it would get burnt out, and, we'd figure something else to do. And it kind of just took on a life of its own, and, has grown to now we're over 275 companies.
hmm.
And because of Corona, we are now national and international. I
For
connect.
before that, how did it work before Corona?
It was in person.
Hmm.
because we had over 200 companies at the time, it's a lunch we were meeting in Garden City, Long Island, and Farmingdale, Long Island, at two high-end restaurants, Capitol Grill and this Toa Fusion, Asian fusion restaurant in Farmingdale, because it was pretty much Nassau, Suffolk group, some Queens people and things like that. And we have a private room and things like that. And it was in-person group, and it was successful. And the group has done over $12 million of business together that I'm aware of. I'm sure it's a lot more than that I haven't even heard of. And as importantly, we've raised over $1 million for charity, because the group is very much a give versus get mentality group. And that's kind of my passion. And that's kind of how I started the group and built the group.
Right. And right. And so, right. And you were about to say how it's working now and gotten more into
Yeah. So now, because of Corona, we turned it into a Zoom networking group. And so a lot of people said, well, I know somebody in Boston and Philly and Washington and Florida. And now, as of last week, Israel. And so now we've added almost 70 people to the group since the coronavirus started, because now it's open, because even the people in Manhattan who were part of the group, who would come to our cocktail parties but not come to the lunch, because nobody's going to come from Manhattan for a 12 o'clock lunch in Garden City. It's just not going to happen. So even the Manhattan people who would come to the evening events, the cocktail parties that we run for charities, are now regulars on the Zoom calls.
Right. No, it's very interesting. So if somebody wants to join, somebody could be listening to this also anywhere in the world or anywhere in the country. If they want to potentially join one of these lunch groups,
Sure.
What should they do?
Yeah, you can email me at jeff@roundtablenetworking.group. So it's jeff@roundtablenetworking.group. That's the email address specifically for the lunch group. And, we'll have a conversation if we have the category open, because we do limit it to, a certain amount of people in each category so that everybody can get in, at least once a month. And typically, we try to get in everybody at least once a month. Sometimes now we've added an extra day, so we sometimes can get people in twice a month. And there's no fees. And in fact, now what we're doing, because we're not at the restaurants anymore, we're asking people for the $35 that they normally pay to lunch, we pick a different charity each lunch, and we ask that people donate the $35 to that local charity. And we've raised about $13,000 for local charities since we started it as a Zoom group.
That's so cool. And what now? You mentioned the emphasis that you have on charities here. Almost out of time, but I just want to ask you one last question. Aren't you also working on another charitable project that you're contacting people about? Maybe you want to mention that.
For the Five and Alive?
I forgot the organization, lymphoma or something. I forgot.
Oh, the lymphoma. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm right now working on a campaign for a project called it's for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. It's called Man Woman of the Year. Essentially, what it is, it's a fundraising competition where they have 4 businessmen, 4 businesswomen raise the most money in a 10-week time frame, which ends July 30th.
Okay.
So
when this airs, people will still have time. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So and I was involved. I got involved 3 years ago because my daughter is a stage 4 Hodgkin's cancer survivor herself, and I was nominated for this event, and so I formed a committee from the lunch group, and the committee being the kind of people they are, they wanted us to raise $50,000 minimum, and the committee said, no, it's for your daughter. What's the most they've ever raised in the history of the event in 20-year history? And it was $167,000. So our goal then became $200,000, and we ended up raising, actually in 10 weeks, $219,000.
Oh, wow.
And then the next year we did it again for somebody who was on the committee. We raised another $180,000. And then last year we did it again. And this year we're doing it again. So we're in the last 3 years, we've raised close to $800,000 for leukemia and lymphoma. And so we're doing this in my daughter's honor, and we have an organization called Five and Alive. It's not a 501c3. It's just the name we came up with when I was running my campaign. She was 5 years cancer-free at the time. So we're asking people to contribute to leukemia and lymphoma. And if anybody is interested, they can contact me at the Roundtable Networking. I can send them the link and they can donate. And we're trying to break my record.
Okay, that's awesome. So it's Jeff at, what's the email one more time?
Jeff at roundtablenetworking.group.
Okay, Jeff at roundtablenetworking.group. Obviously, if anybody wants to be in touch about, joining one of these networking lunches, obviously it'd be a great thing to try out and do, to reach out with him for that, or you can get the link to donate to Five and Alive, leukemia and lymphoma, which is obviously a great cause. Hopefully, I know that it was definitely a great resource and great knowledge that you've shared today with high deductible plans, and just a tremendous amount of money that employers and employees can save. And obviously everybody is looking to spend as least as possible on expenses right now. So that could be a great resource. And obviously people can reach out to you at hkmassociates.com. Questions with that. And just really, really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, no problem. And one last thing, one of the differentiators with us is when we run employee meetings for all our groups, and every single employee of every single one of my clients gets my cell phone number. So we service at a much different level.
Right. Well, that's great. Obviously, you could just say something's available to your employees, but if they don't understand what their benefits are, how they work, how they sign up, which level they should choose of what, or, how it works, what they're being offered, not much use to them if they're not using it at all. So
yeah, it's all about education and saving people money, educating them, and then making sure they're taken care of.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Okay. And see everybody else on the other side. Talk to you later.
You're listening to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.